Hello, welcome, please come in. It's time to resume our no-shopping journey in Final Fantasies, and this week we will be doing that in Final Fantasy VII, a game with a considerably better balanced magic system than Final Fantasy VI. Mostly. This starts with our eco-terrorist trying to blow up a Mako reactor to save the planet, and through most of this early area, nothing is difficult because there are no shops in this area. The only thing really of note here is the free cure materia that I can pick up, though not equip, right before the first boss fight. This cure materia is notable for being the only cure materia I will be able to get in the entire game, because unlike Final Fantasy VI, you do need to buy a lot of your magic access, and that's going to be a bit of a problem, but at least for now, that's a later problem. First boss goes down very easily as ever, because this is functionally a normal run for the time being, but the bombing was successful, though perhaps a bit overzealous, and while I make my way to Sector 7, a reminder, a shop is any place you exchange money, or other goods, for items. So, sorry Aerith, but that flower is out of my reach. And it's back to Sector 7 to meet up with Tifa and add her to the party for our next mission. Sector 7 has some nice shops, none of which I can use, so no better armor for me, and importantly, no materia. So I'm going to be limited to 1 ice, 1 bolt, and 1 cure materia, at least for now. At least the beginner hall here has some free stuff to grab. An all materia and an ether, not much, but particularly with my limited materia access, anything to make my spells go further is appreciated. On the train, flashing red lights really annoy me, and it's time to bail. Sir, you can have that money. I don't need it. Onto the tracks themselves, and it's time to crawl through vents and pick up what few items are around here. I will need to be very judicious with my item usage. I won't get nearly as many as I'd like. Anyway, grab some EXP on random encounters, and it's time for the next boss fight. I go into the fight a bit weakened because I don't want to use a tent, but that should be fine. Ooh, the Airbuster does deal decently high damage, right out of the gate, and I'm not playing as carefully as I probably should be. Tifa goes down to a counterattack, and while I could resurrect her, I only have 1 Phoenix down. Better to save it. Good thing the boss doesn't have that much HP. Down the slums, I chat with and recruit Aerith, who comes equipped with no materia. Bummer. Would love to get some free stuff at some point. I feel like I'm going to have plenty of summons and weird materia that you can only get in specific places, but have no basic materia. Anyway, here are the shops, they don't matter, and it's time to head over to Aerith's house, which has a cover materia. Not the most useful, and it will actively cause problems later. I'll get to it. At least it provides a +1 to vitality, which isn't much, but it's something. Wall Market likewise has nothing of interest because it's all shops, which do not interest me. So it's time to hop into a dress and sneak my way into Corneo's mansion. Normal Friday night stuff. This reunites the party, most of it anyway, and I then get tricked by Corneo in an obvious trap, and it's time for the next boss fight. Raps. Raps can hit fairly hard with Sewer Tsunami, but more often than not deals more damage to itself than the party. And that all-target damage also means I get a lot of limit breaks in, which means a lot of damage coming from Tifa and Cloud, and a lot of healing coming from Aerith. And on my way out of the sewers, I pick up this steel materia, which is going to be very useful in this playthrough. And that starts already in the train graveyard, which aside from having a lot of nice healing items to grab around the map, also has an item worth stealing. This chariot enemy, I guess that's what these are, has a striking staff. A very strong staff for Aerith that has double the attack power of any other character's weapon. In theory, quite good. In practice, Aerith is about to leave the party for the rest of the Midgar section, so it's not as useful as it could be. But with Aerith gone, Barrett rejoins the party, and Reno gets to fight the party using his exciting pyramid ability. Ooh. I wonder if my disappointment in the steal command is that few bosses have anything worth stealing in this game. Anyway, while Reno isn't a complete pushover, he's also not that difficult. Even with his pyramid ability and the ability to paralyze a character with his electro rod, he just doesn't deal enough damage. So I can beat him up while he runs away, and the party must swing to safety. So back to Aerith's house to chat with her mother, and it's time to sneak our way into Shinra HQ, which sadly does mean purchasing some batteries to activate destroyed machinery. I'd love to not do so, but the batteries are sadly required to advance the plot. Stupid game having mandatory purchases. Surface side, and I think I'm going to not take the subtle approach. Beating up these guards is basically free experience, and while it may consume a small number of resources, I'll get to a full heal spot on the upper floors before any real fighting needs to be completed. Ooh, Spike Ball! I can steal new armor from these. I'll get a few more later, but any upgrade to my defenses is absolutely essential. Anyway, Shinra HQ successfully stormed, and for probably the first time in my entire life, I managed to complete this stealth section on the first attempt. Is this character growth? Is this what character growth feels like? Next interesting thing is the Mayor floor, which means solving a Mayor puzzle to get the Mayor prize of an elemental materia, which can be useful in theory, but usually isn't that exciting. But still, it's more materia to potentially equip, and I'm much shorter on materia than I normally am. Next floor is a puzzle floor involving some vents. Solving this gets me another all materia, a 4 slots armor, and a star pendant. Nothing too exciting, but hey, more materia. And then the gym floor, and the most notable thing here is the free full heal offered by sleeping in the break room, and stealing items from random lockers, I guess. Then assemble a replica of Midgar that is here, but not assembled for some reason. What is this doing here in pieces? Then I spy on the executives doing some very obvious evil scheming, and more spinny balls, which means more carbon bangles for everyone. Hooray, another materia, poison, which can actually be quite useful for the damage and the poison status effect. Then I need to fight some third-class soldiers, which have Cloud's next useful weapon, the Hard Edge. They do make me work for it though, they are not messing around. The better weapon is worth it though. Oh look, Aerith and Red, and a boss, this weird thing. I'm not sure what this actually is supposed to be. I do know it's weak to Cross Slash, which can paralyze, and Red's Fire All does decent damage to all enemies. Oh, now that Red's here, I actually have access to the core 3 elements. It only took 2 hours. And an enemy skill materia, which will be useful because enemy skill is always useful. Boss dead and the gang is captured, and then we escape through no actual work of our own to confront Rufus on the roof, before the party splits up to deal with 2 different boss fights. And first on that list is this tank in an elevator, which thankfully takes pretty big damage from limit breaks. And of course, Aerith's big magic damage is always great. First form down, time for the helicopter, which proceeds pretty similarly. It's an early game boss, which means it's pretty easy to just fire off spells and not really worry too much. I mean, I have to be careful to keep the party healed, but shopping hasn't been too impactful yet. Next up is Rufus, whose dog dies in one very well-timed limit break. This means Rufus is even more vulnerable to attacks than normal, which ends up meaning very little because of paralysis and poison. Alright, another easy fight. What's next? Oh right, an obnoxious motorcycle minigame. And then the next boss fight. Another boss that I need to be a bit careful with because it can deal big damage to my entire party. However, Cloud and Barret can deal big damage with limit breaks, and that all target damage means those happen even more frequently. And keeping Aerith in the party means I have some backup healing through her limit break when a single character having a cure materia just isn't good enough. Alright, that's another boss down, and it's out into the wide world. And I will be sticking with Barret and Aerith in my party for the normal reasons. Around Midgar, I can immediately get the Matromagic enemy skills, so that's some nice all-target damage. And the same enemy actually has atomic scissors to steal that should help Barret's damage a bit. I would prefer not to rely on steel for better equipment, because stealing in this game is super tedious, but my options are limited. And now I can head to Culm, which has a bunch of shiny new items that I can't buy, and a long boring flashback that I can't skip. So just a great stop off in the story. Hooray. That done, my next destination is the Mithril Cave, but getting there means the next big obstacle to the run, the Midgar Zolom. Normally you'd buy the Chocobo lure materia, buy some greens, catch a Chocobo, and ride safely across. However, that is a lot of purchasing that I can't do. So, while I can still pick up the Chocomog materia, I will need to be clever to get past the Zolom. There are a couple options for this, but I'm gonna go with the least cheesy, and that involves hitting the Zolom with a deadly waste item I stole back in Midgar. This deals decent damage, and importantly, poisons. Midgar Zolom's most dangerous attack, Beta, doesn't happen until the Zolom transitions to Phase 2, which is normally triggered by reaching a certain HP threshold. However, this trigger does not happen if the damage is from poison, so I really just need to spend a few minutes waiting and keeping my party healed up, which goes okay, though not as well as I'd hoped. The Zolom will respawn, but it does so at a set spawn point, so I can just hold forward while the world map loads and reach the other shore safely. Potential headache resolved. Barret is dead, and I don't want to waste a Phoenix down, so I'll just run through the cave and get to Fort Condor for the free healing. Then back into the Mithril Cave to grab the items around the cave and flamethrower on my enemy skill materia. Any boost to my damage access is appreciated. Next is into the forest around Fort Condor to steal a boomerang from these birds, a weapon for Yuffie that I will never use. Then I recruit Yuffie, mostly for her side quest later on. Alright, on to Junon to save a small child who is being attacked by a giant fish. Monster thing. Not actually sure what this is. My damage isn't great in this fight, partly because of my limited materia access, but partly because damage is real low at this point in the game, and the boss stole a trick from Reno and can encase a character in bubbles. But it is also vulnerable to poison, which doesn't deal a ton of damage per tick, but that does add up. Small child successfully saved, I can grab the Shiva materia and dolphin jump up to Junon proper, which means it's time for another patented cloud disguise. First is the parade itself, which I fundamentally don't know how to do well, and then explore Junon to steal all the shiny free items. Most notably, a second enemy skill materia. I'll fill out the enemy skills on it later, but it's good to grab now. And time to do a little performance to impress Rufus, because that gets me a Force Stealer, a better sword for Cloud. And better weapons are always good. On the cargo ship, things go awry and it's time to jump into action. Good thing the sailor can fully heal my party as needed, somehow. Because I'm going to be taking some damage trying to steal from these stupid soldiers, because the steal rates in this game are just awful. But the soldiers here have Shinra betas, a slight upgrade to my character's defenses. Was it worth the time it took to steal them? No, probably not. But I did it anyway. Okay, next boss time, Genova 1. And this fight is no joke. I do have some heavy hitting summons, but Genova also hits quite hard with every attack. Having Aerith in the party is really nice for these early sections. Oh, and Genova can inflict stop, a status effect I have no way to resist or cure at this point, so I just have to hope it misses or wait for the effect to expire. Honestly, this fight is one of the roughest in the game, at least anecdotally. Thankfully, limit breaks are busted strong and can still punch through the boss. That nets me an Ifrit materia, and means I have arrived in scenic Costa del Sol. Love that ocean vibe. Time for the mountain path on the way to Corel. The enemies here are not particularly dangerous and don't really have anything useful to steal, so they aren't meaningful to me. But I can grab some items by falling from these broken train lines. Wait, if the train tracks here are broken now, how do we have an exciting train chase later? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Corel doesn't have anything interesting to steal, so it's gold saucer time. In the arcade zone, I can recruit Cait Sith and, more importantly, grab the manipulate materia from him, then get charged with a bunch of murders and thrown into the under prison. In the area before the next boss, I can find Death Claws. These have the very valuable Platinum Bangle to steal, and the very useful laser enemy skill to learn. A very nice 2-for-1 benefit. Next boss is Dine, which is a 1v1 with only Barret. Barret has the cure materia, and reliable healing is all you really need to win this fight. Chocobo race to freedom via the infinite stamina cheat, and I'm free! Wait, what does happen if you lose this race? I don't think I've ever done that. Who cares? Now with the buggy in hand, it's time to grab some very exciting improvements. First is the Big Guard enemy skill from these weird shell mollusk creatures on the beach. Next is the Aqualung enemy skill from the desert harpies? That's not a harpy, like, at all. Anyway, back across the sea, and I can grab the White Wind enemy skill from the Zamzelit. Okay, and back across the sea again, but now to actually continue making story progress. In Gungaga, I can fight the Turks, who sadly do not yet have anything interesting to steal. Fortunately, they cannot handle a few casts of Aqualung. In Gungaga's destroyed reactor, I pick up the Titan materia, and it's time to move on to Cosmo Canyon. And here is the only place to pick up HP Plus and MP Plus materia. Except I can't purchase them. Wait, you can get an HP Plus from the Rufus ceremony if you do worse? Wish I'd known that an HP Plus materia would have been way more useful than the Force Stealer, because not getting those HP bonuses is going to mean all my characters have less HP than I am used to. Well, hindsight is 20/20, and I'm not resetting the entire run to redo that. Anywho, next dungeon on the list is the Gi Caverns. No particular items of note, so other than the spiders here being weirdly strong enemies, it's boss time. And I really should save my healing items, but instead, I'm gonna use an elixir to end the fight in a single turn. Completing that gets me a gravity materia and some more sad exposition. More important for me though, it means it's time to move on. This playthrough isn't getting any shorter. Let's mosey. Onwards to Nibelheim, and the mansion has a pretty good number of items to pick up. And of course, I need to open the safe and fight my next boss, whatever this thing is called. Much like Midgar Zalem, this boss has a much more dangerous phase that you can bypass completely through the use of poison. It does, however, rely on Bio actually inflicting poison. Where is Aerith's materia? Why does Aerith not have... I never moved Red's materia back to Aerith. Okay, that could be worse. At least Aerith has big healing potential, and I managed to land poison on the boss. This deals real big damage and can bypass the phase transition. But boy, this boss hits like a truck, and I'm burning through healing items. Boss dead, but my item stocks are looking not great. Hopefully that won't turn into an actual issue. Once I get the tiny Bronco, I'll be able to get easy access to healing items via enemy drops. Down in the basement, Sephiroth babbles incoherently and then throws a destruct materia at me, which I appreciate because I will be using destruct exactly one time throughout the rest of the game, and it will be against the final boss. Oh right, I forgot the rogue figures here also give out prizes. Nice! Mount Nibel is next, and it's a pretty dangerous and lengthy area. Shiny new weapons though. Every new treasure is a nice boon to the party. And getting through that area means it's time for the next boss. This thing. I immediately cast Big Guard because this thing can hit like a truck, and Odin doesn't deal half bad damage either. The problem is once I'm out of summons, my damage falls to very low numbers. The more I played this game, the more convinced that this game is actually not as well balanced as I used to think. Later thing to think about. The real problem is all my offensive and defensive options are really expensive. And my not expensive options, like basic attacks and normal cure magic, are really weak. And this stupid thing can heal itself for 1000 HP before dropping Trine and killing Aerith, which means I need to use my last Phoenix down to revive her, and she's dead again, and Cloud is dead. Okay, so it may be time to do some actual grinding because I think I'm a bit underleveled. And grinding in the caves here is not something worth doing because dragons. The area around the reactor itself is pleasantly dragon-free though. Hold, please. Okay, couple levels gained and back into the fight. My strategy is basically the same, but hopefully those levels have bumped up my damage numbers. And they have. And my HP. It's still not a free fight because this boss is pretty tough, with Trine in particular being very damaging. But sometimes all you need is a bit more damage. Ooh, counterattack materia. In Rocket Town, my first step is to hang out with this old man so he gives me a cool sword. This has fewer slots and normal materia growth, so I'm not going to use it. Then steal this drill arm from this chest, which, spoilers, is going to be the best weapon Barret has equipped for quite a while. Then some nonsense near a rocket, then some nonsense near a plane, and it's into the next boss fight, Palmer. He has a magic gun, but that's kind of all he's got. Compared to the last boss, this is basically just spam enemy skills and summons until Palmer gets hit by a truck. Not impressive. Oh, he did have an Eden coat though, that's nice. Okay, now it's time for some more item collection. These big turtles have adamant bangles for stealing and the Death Force enemy skills, so another nice 2-for-1. I need to get the keystone, so it's time to head back to the gold saucer for the last time in the entire game. Dino gives me the keystone and it's time to stay at a haunted inn and then go on a date. More importantly, the party is then betrayed by Cait Sith, but that's okay because it's time to head to the Temple of the Ancients. Oh, but you know what? I should pick up Beta from the Midgar Zalem first. The Temple of the Ancients itself is pretty maze-like in appearance, but it's not actually really possible to get that lost, given how linear the path is. Ooh, luck plus materia. Love some more independent materia. And then the clock puzzle, which has a bunch of shiny treasures, including these hecties, which kill my entire party. Oh, that did not go as planned. I think it may be time to do a bit of leveling, because I really should not be dying in a single attack to random mobs. That is definitely not what I need. Okay, back into the temple and back to where I'd previously left off, the clock puzzle. This time I just paralyzed the hecties with Seal Evil and kill them in one spell. Okay, so maybe levels weren't the actual issue. Oh well, other notable treasures include the ribbon to immunize myself to status effects, and of course all the no materia weapons I'll want for Wutai. Then into the room that haunts my dreams at night to face the next boss, the Red Dragon, who is definitely not a boss to underestimate. First, let's open with Big Guard and some nice summon damage. Really gotta get those deeps in. The dragon also deals enough damage to unlock limit breaks fairly frequently, which means pretty big damage. And of course, Aqualung also deals big chunks of damage. Ooh, a dragon armlet. I love new armor. Cait Sith must now sacrifice himself to get the party out of here, which doesn't even make sense because he is a stuffed animal and will come back 5 minutes later, but whatever. And then it's time for my least favorite boss in the game, Demon Wall. Same strategy as always, open with Big Guard to mitigate the hefty damage this boss does. Then unleash some summons for big damage. Then I can really just attack normally. It's not a lot of damage per attack, but I really need to save resources for Big Guards and cures. Demon Wall just deals too much damage for me to spend resources playing that aggressively. Okay, Demon Wall is dead, and I can leave this nightmarescape and get back to Cloud betraying the party due to mind control and giving Sephiroth the black materia. Oh no, the tragedy. Now that the heavy stuff is done, it's about time for a side quest. And I think it's time for Sid to get a chance to be in the main party. Why not? Over in Wutai, Yuffie steals all the party's materia, so we need to track her down. Honestly, this quest is pretty skippable, but if nothing else, I want the MP Absorb materia you can only get during this side quest. It would be nice if I could buy the spell items available here to use against the boss, but alas, no luck. And of course the boss itself, which deals like 3 times as much damage as it should with Arrow. Good thing the boss isn't that durable, or I would have died, or needed to expend a lot of healing items. MP Absorb in hand, and it's time to continue along the main plot. First, I need to dig up the Lunar Harp. Then, into the forest itself, I can grab the Kujata materia that floats around. Eventually... Nice. I'll need that water ring later. The Forgotten Capital has a few shinies I need to pick up. First is the Comet materia, which is somewhat useful. Next up is an Aurora armlet, which is a pretty big increase to my defense. And finally, the third enemy skill materia. Items gathered, it's time for poignant character death and a very easy boss fight. Genova 2 has some pretty heavy-hitting attacks, but can only deal water damage, which means Cloud absorbs all attacks. Yeah, this fight can't be difficult if you know what you're up against. Genova 2, how did you beat the Ancients? It seems like you aren't nearly as scary as the narrative of this game would lead me to believe. Oh well. The caves past this have some very nice items. A Bolt Armlet for more defense, a Mega Elixir for some great healing. Ooh, the Magic Plus materia, nice. Onto the world map and into Icicle Inn for a nice rest before dodging Elena's attack, and that means it's time for another minigame. Isn't this great? This minigame with iffy controls, unclear goals, and no music? Seriously, why is there no music in this section? It's just eerily silent and unsettling for a snowboarding game. Alright, I have limited time in this area before I pass out, and I honestly don't remember where anything is. There is an added cup materia somewhere around here, but honestly I can't be bothered to look up where it is. Added cut, while useful, is hardly essential. I'll just skip it. And that means it's time to climb up the Great Glacier itself. And this area has another useful ribbon. We love status immunities. I do appreciate that Beta can one-shot these bats and the icicles in one go. It makes this otherwise annoying section much easier. Before I fight the next boss, it's time to deal with some dragons. Specifically because, when defeated, they drop dragon armlets, which are another nice upgrade to my defenses. Okay, now it's time for the next boss, Twin Dragon or whatever. The dragons deal a split of fire and ice damage. This means I can reduce the damage I take considerably by equipping the dragon armlets I just got. Oh, geez, Barret, how did you die? You had shell and half elemental damage. I really miss having a bunch of HP pluses at this point. These HP totals are a lot lower than I like. And the damage this dragon is doing is no joke. First head goes down, and I'm at pretty low health? Not ideal, but its damage is functionally halved. Once the second head goes down, the party is all almost dead. Alright, that was closer than I thought. Good thing this healing spring is here, because that was a lot of HP and MP I just spent. Tifa wants to join the party, so Sid is out. Ooh, Tifa doesn't really have any good weapons at this point. Guess I'll go with the no materia weapon, as that's definitely the best damage option. While I'm at it, let's make sure Cloud absorbs fire damage as well. I'll need that for the next fight. Alright, better-ish weapon for Tifa. That's a lot of materia slots. And it's boss time! Just like Genova 2, Genova 3 can only deal one flavor of elemental damage. But in this case, it's fire, which of course means I can't lose this fight now that Cloud absorbs fire damage. So it's slow, because my damage is awful, but the fight is inevitable. Hooray! The black materia has been retrieved, the black materia has been given to Sephiroth, and Cloud has fallen into the life stream. All in all, not a great track record for the group, but we rejoin the party back in Junon, where our heroes are about to be executed for some reason. And that sounds less than ideal for completing the game, so it's time to stage a, we'll say daring escape. Helped by the timely arrival of one of the weapons. Not sure if this one has an official name because it shows up for 5 minutes and gets its head blown off. And then some running around, nothing interesting here, lose this slap fight, and it's time to escape in our new stolen airship, which means I have access to air travel. Hooray! And that also means it's time for Tifa to take the lead. For a few minutes. Next destination is Mideel. Here I can, I was about to say get a new materia, but it occurs to me you need to feed the chocobo a mimic green, which I can't do because those can only be purchased. So I guess no contain for me, which is fine, I guess. Added to the list of materia I can't get. Diva's out of the party to look after Cloud, and that means Sid is in charge. He was already in the party, so he's well equipped for this. Let's throw Red in for the third party member. I'll be getting Cloud back fairly shortly, but until then, Red's a pretty good party member. Oh, I have my third enemy skill, don't I? I should run around and stock up on some essential enemy skills before I move on. Can't go anywhere without Beta, White Wind, and Big Guard. That done, it's time to hop over to Corel to have a fun train chase. This section is one area where the laser enemy skill can do some big work. The enemies here have a lot of HP, but are not immune to gravity damage, meaning I can cut through them much quicker by just having their HP. That gets me my next big materia to add to the roster, Ultima. Can't use it yet because it needs to level up, but it does deal pretty big damage. Then it's over to Fort Condor to cheese the final battle by only killing one enemy. This gets me another huge materia, and the Phoenix materia. Ooh, Phoenix is actually going to be quite useful, since I don't have many Phoenix downs and can't get life materia anywhere. Nice. Back to Mediel for a quick fight against Ultima Weapon, who can immediately take out over half my HP with one spell. And then Red goes down. Okay, thank you Neo Bahamut for ending the fight, because that boss fight did not look super promising for me. Then a long story sequence where Tifa helps stitch Cloud's fragmentary memory back together, and that means Cloud is back in the party, which is good, because he's my best character. And with him back, it's time to, once again, storm Junon. Because the next big materia is in the underwater reactor, which means a lot of violence, which is great. It's really the only verb I have access to. And surprisingly, this area is pretty short, pretty linear, and it's just time for the next boss, Grabby Hands. Now this boss has given me trouble in prior runs, so let's not mess around. First up is Big Guard, per normal. Now I just need to unleash my strongest multi-target attacks to try and break the arms before they can grab anyone. It doesn't go quite as I'd hoped with Sid getting grabbed, but then the arms break. Excuse me, is that lapis laser always that strong? Sir, what the... was that... Okay, that's fine. I can heal back up, and... Again? How often are you allowed to use lapis laser? Because it seems like it's more often than it should be. Okay, I wish I had more health, but failing that, I'm gonna need to be sure Big Guard is set up at all times. Back into the fight, we'll start with the same basic strategy. Big Guard for defense and then summons, and some really weak limit breaks. I really need a better weapon for Barret. Okay, the arms are broken, and now I need to make sure Big Guard stays up, so that Lapis Laser isn't nearly as destructive, and then it uses it in the brief gap between Big Guard expiring and me recasting it. Stupid grabby hands. Okay, I'm just gonna use X potions. They are a semi-limited resource, but I really don't want to try and heal up with Cure 2 and White Wind, because that will not do what I need it to. Alright, well that boss was a pain, as is weirdly becoming normal. Into the submarine, and Barret, my dude, why are you dead? Is this what no HP plus is like? What is happening this playthrough? Anyway, the submission is fine and normal. I briefly lose track of the red submarine, but the game wasn't running at 3 times speed, so it's only briefly. Now that I have the submarine, it's time to explore the sunken Gelnica. This gives me a better weapon for Cloud and the double cut materia. Then another fight with Reno and Rude. This fight is largely uneventful, other than it means I can steal the Tough Ring and the Zedric armor. I'll see you boys later. Ah, Hades, my impromptu third ribbon. That's all I really care about here. So it's back into Junon to run around a bit, because I can't remember what I'm supposed to be doing here. Oh, right, Gelnica 2 is now en route to Rocket Town, because it's time for the obligatory space section of the game. And that means another Rude fight. This fight is actually easier than the last one, but that does mean I can steal another. Barret, can you please stop dying? It's the Turks. What is wrong with you? Get it together. Anyway, into the rocket, into space, rescue the huge materia, and it's back down to Earth. And then back to Cosmo Canyon to drop off the huge materia, and it's time to run a quick errand. Pick up this key that somehow got placed in this underwater cave. Interesting. Take that to the Forgotten Capital to see Aerith die again, and learn that Holy exists, and it is our only hope to save the world. Which would be the next priority, but oh no, it's time for Weapon to attack Midgar, which means a nice beach episode, then an actual fight. Open with Big Guard as always, then steal the weapon for Yuffie that I will never use, so don't know why I bothered. And now that the core is exposed, it's time to unleash all the flavors of Bahamut. Diamond Weapon does have a pretty strong charged attack that brings the party down to yellow health, but it fails to capitalize on it, so I'm able to win the fight. Why does this boss give so much experience in AP? It's not even that difficult of a fight. Which means it's almost time for endgame. But first, I should grab Magic Hammer. This drains 100 MP from an enemy and gives it to the caster. Normally it wouldn't be worth very much, but my no MP pluses and limited MP healing will need some help in these endgame fights. Seriously, I can cast like 2 Ultimas and that's it. Anyway, time to raid Midgard to save the city or something. Ooh, more armor. Then run south on the train tracks to grab the W item materia. Will this be useful? I don't think so, but better to grab it and not need it. And then the final Turk fight, which is actually kind of tough, mostly because I need to steal some shiny items and keep the party alive. And for sake, Barret, why are you dead again? What is happening with you? I have good armor. I may not have the HP plus materia, but I feel like you shouldn't be dying this much. Whatever. Then I just throw out some summons and ultimas and the fight is won. Okay, time to take a quick side trip into the Shinra Tower for a free heal, because I don't actually have that many tents left. So any free healing is worth it. Okay, what boss is up next to kill Barret again? Oh, Proud Claude. This is another boss with multiple target points. So I start by casting Big Guard, cause always, then it's time to summon. Just all the summons. Which is very expensive. But now I have Magic Hammer, which is less useful than I'd hoped. 100 MP isn't actually that much, and once the enemy runs out of MP, it stops restoring my MP. So, unless the boss has a bunch of MP and I have a lot of time, it's not really worth doing. Although it does stop the Proud Claude from doing its big laser, so I guess that's useful. Anyway, that's the end of the fight, so that's neat. Oh, thank goodness. Finally, a better weapon for Barret. I mean, it also has 0 materia growth, which isn't ideal, but at least I'll have it for later. Anyway, time for the Hojo fight. First item on my list is to use Magic Hammer to get some MP back, then unleashing a bunch of strong summons, which is very nice. Also, Hojo resummons his allies, so I think I could get infinite MP from them? Maybe? Second phase time. Fortunately, Hojo relies on status effects a lot in this final fight, and my entire party is immune to basically everything. And this phase also has more MP for me to leech with. Barret, for the love of all things, how are you dead again? You are the most durable character in the game. What is wrong with you? Good thing I have Phoenix, because I'm actually out of Phoenix Downs, which is not ideal. Okay, finally, it's third phase time, which means I spend more time draining MP from the boss. And Barret's dead again. Why were those hits dealing 500 damage? I've never been a huge fan of Barret mechanically in this game, and I think I'm just convinced he's the worst. Okay, despite needing to use a bunch of high potions because I have no MP left, Hojo goes down. Okay, that fight was surprisingly rough. Is it just because I have no HP pluses? Maybe I'm underleveled. I guess it's possible, though I've never had that problem before. Oh well, that done, the last story beat is flying into the Northern Crater to defeat Sephiroth. But you know I have some errands to do before that. And first on the list is hunting down Ultima Weapon, which is super obnoxious as always. This is just Death Gaze from FF6, but somehow more obnoxious. Seriously, the draw distance in this game is like 4 feet. How am I supposed to find a moving target? If I wanted to be optimal, I'd put all my enemy skill materia on one character so they could all learn Shadow Flare. I'm not going to bother doing that though, because I don't actually care that much about getting Shadow Flare. It's not that strong, especially compared to the damage basic attacks do at endgame. Anyway, Ultima Weapon is dead. This gives me the Ultima Weapon for Cloud, which is very nice, and unlocks the Ancient Forest, which is great since I can't get in here via Chocobo because I can't really breed Chocobos. This area is nothing interesting to talk about, but it does get me the Slash All materia, which is always nice to have, particularly for the few bosses left that have multiple parts. What all is left for me to do? Am I gonna do the Pagoda side quest? No. Instead of that, I'm going to pop back to the Mithril Cave to kill a bunch of enemies to get some new limit breaks unlocked. Stupid limit break requirements. Okay, some new limit breaks have been acquired. Next I would need to use a bunch of limit breaks. The first area of Northern Cavern is a good place for that. I can manipulate the dragon to use laser to have HP and teach the entire party Dragon Force. This should be a good place to learn, and I died. Okay, you know what? Never mind. I don't need these. Alright, time to finish this. Grab what items I can on the way to the party split. Then, for the first time ever, I managed to split the party the correct direction so my main party goes the same way. This is not the direction I thought it was. You know what? I don't care. It doesn't matter. Reunite with the team at the bottom of the cavern, and it's time to backtrack to get the items I didn't get on the other route. Most of this isn't super useful, but there are some ethers, X potions, and a mega ult to grab. Honestly, I'm mostly going back this way to grab the Pandora's Box enemy skill from this big thing, and then Angel Whisper from this woman. Will I need these? Almost certainly not. Which means it's final boss time. Good thing I have exactly 1/10 left in my inventory. Cutting that a bit close, eh? The run up to Jenova is fine and easy. The enemies are very durable, but also vulnerable to gravity magic, which means Laser and Demi 3 can take out huge chunks of their HP. And then it is Jenova time. Open with Big Guard, even though I probably didn't need to. Just like in prior runs, my goal is to get the easy version of Bizarro Sephiroth entirely so I don't have to think about outfitting more than one party. That means really taking my time on the Jenova 4 fight. Good news is her tentacles are very easy to break, and while broken, she doesn't actually do anything. Once I decide it's been long enough to end the fight, Cloud can deal about 10,000 damage per command thanks to the huge damage bonus of the ultimate weapon. Even Barret is doing pretty good damage with missing score. You know, where is Cid's ultimate weapon? Meh, too late to grab it now anyway. Into the Sephiroth fight, open with a big limit break, then some basic attacks to destroy some more stuff, and big attacks from Cloud to break the core. Then Pandora's Box, partly to deal big damage to all segments, partly because it breaks the animations, and I think that's funny. Sephiroth does have Heartless Angel to reduce the party to low HP, however, I have 8 Mega Elixirs, which with how much damage I'm dealing is way more than I need. I really didn't need to be so conservative with MP restoring items, huh? Because I am going to have a bunch left over. In the Safer fight, I lead with Big Guard for safety, then Dispel to remove Safer's defenses, then Double Cut with Cloud to deal over 10,000 damage. Does a hero drink boost damage? We'll find out. Once Safer is back to ground level, I guess. Rude. And thank goodness I have 3 times speed boost in this version. This entire move is just so extra. Did you know the PC port doesn't have that? It's really weird. And dumb. Anyway, once the attack goes off, I use Cure 2 to heal the party a bit, then White Wind to heal a little bit more. Cloud has his limit break, so I may as well throw out some Meteor Rain. Wait, that was it? Really? I could have sworn Safer had more HP than that. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. I was in no danger, and I was dealing pretty good damage, but huh. Well, that final boss is one of the easiest fights in the game. And that was FF7, beaten without shopping. And that run was really weird. It seemed like all the strongest options were readily available because you have to find those out in the world, but really basic stuff like haste, HPMP pluses, life magic were completely inaccessible, so that was pretty interesting. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone and will remain that way. For now, if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.